Okay, so what do you guys want to talk about? What do you want to talk about, Will?
Oh geez, I was looking forward to witnessing to whatever insights and poetry you wish to share about your experience taking time meditating without a phone. I think that's pretty remarkable. I don't know too many folks doing that right now, though I know a lot of people think it's probably a good idea. I'm just curious about how it felt for you, things that you would like to share. Um,
I definitely think it's a really good idea for sure. Yeah, I think it's really powerful. So yeah, so and plus I was silent the whole time too.
wow.
So
By were people
5 days I
serving
was
you or
silent.
helping you or how did you manage that?
They serve meals,
Hmm.
so they serve breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and yeah, I don't really need anything else besides food. So
Does it cost very much?
it's amazing. It's called Abbey of Gethesmane, and it's in Kentucky. So it was like a little over a 5 hour drive from where I live, but very windy, although like up and down hills, in and out. There wasn't really much of a straight way from where I'm at to there. Um, so I so I was reading some of Thomas Burton's books, and he used to live there. He was a monk that lived there, contemplative monk. So that's how it kind of came on my radar. And so I just found a website, and they said, like, we have personal unguided retreats for people. And if you want to do one, just send an email to this email. So I sent an email, and then they said, we have these potential dates available. So I chose a date, and they said, okay, you're confirmed. Just come. Um, you everything isn't on a donation basis. You don't have to, no money to reserve. Just let us know if you're not going to make it. Um, so I just showed up, and they don't even have a what's what I'm looking for, where you can, like, there's like a suggested donation. They don't have that. So I just showed up, and there was like this really old monk at the desk, and he gave me an envelope. And he just said, yeah, you just, there's a box upstairs, and you just put a donation up there whenever you want. He never even checked if I did it. So
Wow.
totally living on faith. And they've been
Yeah.
around for over 200 years, so it's been
Mhm.
serving them well.
Were
Yeah,
the meals in a common area?
yeah.
So how did they know that you were not speaking?
So it's silent for everybody. So
Oh,
so they most of the areas are all silent, except there's a couple areas where you can go to if you want to speak. There was like a couple rooms. If you wanted to speak, you go to those rooms. I never went to those rooms though, but that was, so it was kind of known that even for the dining hall, there was two rooms. The first room was silent, but they played music on the it was just like, piano music and Gregorian chants and stuff. Then there was a second room behind that was like, it was almost like it was in like a cave. It was like all like cement and brick, and that was silent with no external sound. Then there was a room behind that where you could go to talk, but I never went to that room.
Was it all indoors?
They have lots of trails. They have like 100 over. I think it was like a mile and a half of property on the opposite side of the road. So and they had a nice garden too, right by where I was staying. So there was places to walk outside and be outside as well, which I did quite a bit amount of
What were
times.
the other people like?
I don't know. Never, never talked to them. No, that's an interesting question because okay, so I I was telling James, he's been here a couple times, but he was kind of blown away when I was telling him about this. So there was a guy when I first came in, I didn't know where to go, and I'm in the parking lot. So I saw one guy out there, and I said, do you know where to go to check in? And he said, yeah, I do. And so we chatted for just like uh, maybe like a minute at the most. And he said he was from Nashville, Tennessee, and so forth and so on. So he said, like, have a nice retreat. I said, thank you, you too. So then I checked in with the old monk, and so I never talked to anybody else. I never talked to him again, but I would see the same people when I would go for the meals, and a lot of times I'd be sitting, near them or next to them. So what I was telling James is, usually like you're talking to someone and you're getting all these like facts and information about them, but you're not really being present with them as a energetic frequency, let's say, you know? So here it was the opposite, where I'm like present and I can really feel the person, but I don't know anything about them mentally. I don't know any facts, any information. The mind doesn't know anything about them. So in this interesting way, it was actually felt like more intimate this way, if that
Mm.
makes sense, than the other way, right? Where you have like a lot of data, informational data about somebody, but here you don't have all that, but you're just like present. You're just kind of feeling each other's energy, you know, in the space together. So interesting, that guy from Nashville, I had this feeling of feeling like so close to him, like, because I'd always see him and we just kind of, but yeah, but we never talked to him.
Mhm. Were they like older or younger or both?
I think older. I think they're mostly older.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, mostly older.
How many people would you guess
I
were
would,
there?
I would estimate as far as like people that were visiting that were on the retreat there, like I tried to count sometimes. I would say like 25.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah. I like these questions. You're making it easy for me. All these questions are good.
I imagine there was a lot of eye contact then, and maybe even communication through your eyes.
Well, not really. That would be like kind of like our kind of retreats. People would do that kind of stuff. But I think people were really there was like this different I think people weren't really trying to connect because if they were trying to connect, they wouldn't go to something like this,
Hmm.
So it's kind of more the opposite of like you try not to throw people out of you know, their intention yeah, but sometimes you see, your little smile or a wave or something, but that was pretty much the extent of it
Hmm.
for me
Did
anyway.
anybody like start laughing, nervous laughter? I might be
No,
wrong.
but there were people that I could hear breaking the rules at times, let's say.
Okay, yeah.
Uh,
Was it mostly men or women?
I think it was pretty balanced.
Hmm,
It was probably like 50-50.
okay.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
Did you write in a journal
I
much?
did. It's right here.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. I thought I might because I usually I do like notes on my phone.
Mhm.
So I thought I would just use my phone for that. But once I got there, I'm like, I'm not even gonna take this thing out of the car. I'm just gonna turn
Yeah,
it
that'd be
off,
too tempting.
keep it in the car,
Yeah.
and when use the notebook.
Did anybody have their phone?
Yeah, I saw some people with their phone. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, and he said that there was a little library in this building, and he said that there's Wi-Fi in there if you want to use the Wi-Fi in
hmm.
there, which I didn't do, but there was a couple people I saw doing that.
Was
Did Annie know how to reach you, and was she able to reach you?
Nope, she was not able to read. I mean, I'm sure if something happened, she could have reached the
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 facility,
monastery.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but no, that was interesting. I mean, that was definitely the longest I've ever not talked to her since we know each other.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, and it's like you can like feel people too. Like yeah. I don't want just certain things I probably shouldn't say because but let's just say there was like a family member that was sick and I like felt it while I was
Mm.
there,
Mm.
but I found out later.
Your family member?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I felt you, Jacob. I mean, I felt a lot of people, but I'm just giving you some examples of different things.
Yeah. I kind of had a feeling
Well,
too.
you texted me afterwards.
Yeah.
You're like, I never felt so close to God. And I'm like, I know you haven't.
I had a feeling that you were there too in that moment.
Yeah,
That was pretty cool.
Wow.
yeah, yeah.
That's actually why I wanted to text you.
Yeah. So my feeling is when because we think like the only way to communicate is with these things, But my feeling is like it's like we have the innate ability inside ourselves to connect to other people and to be communicating to other people. And we're like limiting that innate ability because we don't trust it.
Absolutely.
Was the food good?
Well, okay, so I will say I was going in expecting very, very rough conditions. So I'm thinking like monastery, this is going to be like really, so I'm just prepared for that. And like really, rustic, intense conditions. And it was actually like pretty nice place. Um, yeah, there was like I mean the rooms were simple, but I had my own bathroom, I had my own obviously my own bed, I had everything I needed, for myself. And and the food was like okay, wasn't like amazing, but it was like wasn't terrible. It was like
You had your
I,
own room?
I would yeah, I had my own room.
Okay.
I would say the food was better than I was expecting, but it wasn't like what I was wasn't what I ate at home either.
Yeah.
That's Jacob. That's my coach right there.
Okay.
Mhm.
Hey,
Got a little
Brian.
shout out there, Jacob. Yeah, Will.
Did you find yourself getting sort of restless at all? Like that seems like a pretty were you just there to
Well,
pray
that
and
was
be
the
in
thing.
silence?
That was the thing I wrote about this on social media was that again, like I thought this was going to be like really difficult, so I kind of
Hmm.
prepared myself mentally, like this is going to be hard, and I think the biggest surprise was like how joyful it was. There was only like one like little period, like maybe like halfway through,
Hmm.
where I kind of felt like I don't know, just like sort of like maybe like missing my life a little bit or something,
Hmm.
But it didn't last that long. It just kind of, I just
Well, you
uh,
have lots of things to do usually, you know? I mean,
right.
it's a
But
pretty big break.
yeah, I think there was like two different levels. There was like on the one hand there was like nothing to do, which I mean to be honest, it felt pretty great. Just there's nothing you have to do,
Hmm.
every day. But then I don't know, somehow I was like pretty engaged with like the other thing that was surprising is when I came back, I thought I would come back like so rested. And I came back, I felt tired.
Hmm.
Because I think like I was doing like such intense like self-inquiry and like this meditation was actually requiring a lot of energy. And then these like long walks and hikes and um just all of it, like so I didn't get into the monks yet, but the monks they so there's like this old not old, I mean it is old, but it feels actually kind of that it's been well kept. But there's a church and it's called the Liturgy of the Hours. And the monks go in there like I don't know if it's 6 or 7 times each day, and they do these different songs and prayers and things throughout the day and the night. And so and the monks, there's maybe like 20 of them. and you start to get familiar with them too. The more because you see them consistently, and so I would go in there whenever I remembered to go in, and I found it very meditative, like just to sit in the church while they're doing these prayers and these songs and stuff. Um, but they have this thing where I think it's I didn't realize it, but I think it's every day. They get up at 3 a.m. and they like they read these Bible verses. They stay. So for some reason I woke up the second night and it was like 2:50 a.m. and I'm like, I'm going to this thing. I'm gonna go to this thing that they do. And so I went. I was the only non-monk that was there. And it was totally up my alley because it was like completely dark and there was one candle that was lit and they're in the dark and they're standing up and they're reading these things, back and forth in the middle of the night. It was pretty. It was like you know, you're watching something that's been going on for 1,000 years.
Could you hear that from your room?
No, no, definitely not.
Yeah.
No, I just knew because they gave me like a little paper which with the times where they do these things in the church.
Hmm.
And then they have mass every morning at 6 a.m. So that day I was there for that as well.
Were they reading from the Bible? Is it
Yeah.
Catholicism or?
Well, I mean, the Bible is the same for everybody, I think. So
Have you gotten
the
yourself a
Bible's
watch
the Bible.
yet?
What's
Have you
that?
gotten yourself a watch yet?
Yep, there it is.
Nice.
I got
So
Brian,
it.
that's how you know the time. I like it.
speaking of a watch and time, did you keep yourself to any kind of a particular schedule, or were you fairly free
Mm,
flowing?
well, yes, I would say so because I did want to make lunch and I ended up mostly skipping breakfast. Well, actually every day I skip breakfast. Um, but I wanted to make lunch and dinner, so that was on my schedule to do that. Then I started then I started becoming aware of this stuff they would do at the the church. And that wasn't like, oh, I have to be there, but if I saw that I was like something I could do, I would go in for that as well. Um, yeah, I think everything else was somewhat flexible,
Hmm.
but also there was like things I wanted to even still internally accomplish. It did a lot of reading as well.
Hmm.
So a lot of meditating, praying, reading, hiking, eating.
And you read a good bit of Thomas Merton.
A little bit. I had like a bunch of books, and then I started finding more they had a library there, so I started getting more from the library.
Hmm.
Um, so not so much Thomas Burton while I was there, but a little bit. Yeah. But I had read some of him before I went. Yeah.
Did they have locks on the doors?
Yes, they did.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Let me tell you about this guy. So there was two times where I'm having trouble seeing in here. There was two times where I heard someone speak the whole time. And it was the first night and the second night at 6:30. We got invited to like listen to a talk. So I decided to go. And the talk was led by hold on, let me find this in my notes. It was led by this guy, Father Carlos, and he was a monk. And it's interesting because like he didn't talk for long. Like because some of it was just like facts about the place and what to know about the rules and so forth. So I would say his talk was only like 20 minutes the first night and the second night, but I was just blown away by the stuff he was saying. I'm still amazed, like even thinking about it now. So he's like this like elderly guy. He's originally from the Philippines, and he kind of like has like he walks sort of like, he's kind of he was not like, let's say he wasn't like physically impressive. He was kind of in kind of bad shape. And also he was, I would say he was not like some kind of like woo woo new age, like, he seemed to be a very traditional type of guy, right? So he starts talking to us about Christianity, and he says, so I had to take note. I didn't have notes with me, so I kind of took notes like afterwards, what I remembered him saying. So he said Christianity is about it's about full restoration. It's about healing in this life, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. I was like, whoa. Oh, that already, I'm like, wow. And then he said, he said, which not that I didn't know it, but he said Jesus was a healer, and he said Christianity is distinct in that way. And I was like, that's actually true. There is no other ones that they weren't created by someone who's a healer, so that was kind of sort of a unique thing. And he gave this great quote by he said, Saint Irenaeus said, the glory of God is a human being fully alive. I love that. The glory of God is a human being fully alive. So, hold on. The rest of this. Okay. So he said Christianity is a therapeutic religion. Three things are required for healing. The first is to change your relationship with God from a God that is, he said God, there's people have this idea that God is vengeful or God wants revenge. And he says it's not the case. God is unconditionally loving. And you change your relationship with God and it brings a sense of healing in yourself. And he used the story of the prodigal son. And he said that um, basically it's a beautiful story, but if I have to make it like really succinct, there he had and Mark can maybe help me out with the story if I don't get it quite right. But there was a father. Jesus is telling the story. So Jesus says there's a father who has two sons, and the one son's very loyal and obedient, does what's required. And the father is very wealthy, and he has this big land of uh, he has this large land and farming and all this kind of thing. The other son kind of rebels and runs away and um, is getting involved in what Mark like gambling and
Well,
prostitution.
he wanted his inheritance early,
Mhm.
and so his father gave him his inheritance, and yeah, he spent it all on wild living.
And so he ends up kind of in like like a gutter, like by himself, and he's alone, and he's totally out of money. And so Father Carlos says, this this son says, okay, I have to go back to my father now, and I have to just tell him I'm a sinner, and I've made these mistakes, and please take me back. I have nothing left. I squandered all my inheritance. I squandered all my money, and my father's probably going to be really mad at me, and I don't even know if he'll take me back. You know, so he comes up to the land, and he said, the father sees him, and the father's so happy to see him, he starts running towards him,
Mhm.
and he starts hugging him and he embraces him. And the Father Carlos says this is like at this time this was like unheard of. Like you were a father, you had dignity. Like you didn't go run towards that wasn't a thing you did. You didn't run towards your child like that. But this guy was so happy, he just ran towards him and he started hugging him and he said, welcome home. Gave him the finest robe and gave him a ring and let's make a feast for for my son. And so he said like that's the relationship that Jesus like redefined the relationship. Jesus was like, this is not about trying revenge or trying to get back at you. This is love. Jesus just wants you to come home to God, you know, and there's a space of unconditional love that's present here for you. So I thought that was really powerful. And then he said the second thing is for healing is you change your relationship with your neighbor. And so before Jesus, your neighbor was just someone who was like you know. Um, in this case, it would be the Jews, other Jews, you know. But Jesus expanded that to everybody, all human beings, you know. And he's example of the Good Samaritan. There's a story that Jesus went through where um, he just expanded it out to people who were thought of as not included, you know. And you know, the way I understood it was like that divine spark of God is in everyone, and to recognize it in everyone, and to love your neighbor as yourself. And your neighbor now is your neighbor is everybody, you know, everyone. It's all inclusive. And you know, to recognize your neighbor as yourself, like you're seeing yourself in that other person. And then he said the third one is to change your relationship with yourself. Um, you're not just a mere creature. Now you're a child of God. And he said, you're actually now in God's genealogy. I love that. So you're actually the sons and daughters of God, you know, and God is, you know, the Father. God is, you know, where we are in the image of God and we're in God's family, essentially. And basically saying like to make these shifts in your consciousness, this is what brings the healing. So I was just like, whoa, like this, I couldn't believe you. I still can't believe he was saying this stuff. I was amazed.
Why couldn't you believe it?
I'm not, I don't think of someone who's like and maybe we don't understand it properly, right? That's maybe what it comes down to. But I don't think of someone who's like, I don't even know how to say it. Like, I would think it'd be some kind of new age, like woo-woo type Christian, you know, that would be talking like this, right? Not this guy.
Yeah.
And he was. This is what he was saying. Um, he said the greatest impediment to this healing is fear, and to transcend the fear, that's the healing. That's the impediment to the healing, and to you know to step into this love. He said,
Can you hear me?
"Geos, yeah,
Uh, I was just gonna say, I feel like the reason why that guy was like that is because he's a monk and he has probably like a direct experience of God, you know? Because there's a lot of people where like they're Christian, but their relationship with God is very surface level. You know, it's like just going to church every Sunday, you know, just reading the Bible whenever, you know. But I think that guy probably has like a really strong relationship because he dedicated his life to it, you know.
I think that you're right. I think these guys spend like so much time in silence. You know, most of their day is in silence, and they're in this, you know, a lot of space, a lot of prayer meditation. So he had a way of talking because I was like, why is what he's saying like affecting me so deeply? Because he would, and that's kind of like what I was saying with when you're having the meals with the people. It's like there's a transmission that's deeper than the words. You know, so he would be simple with his words, but like he was transmitting deeper than the words. Um, so he said Christianity is a mystical religion, and he explained that way. I hadn't heard it said before. He said mystical means you pause and you wait to receive. I thought that was an interesting way of saying it.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
No need to
So
be in a huge hurry.
it's like you way I understood it is like you're instead of just kind of rushing, you're internally you're pausing and you're getting quiet and you're listening for what the guidance is, you know, inside. And then he just clarified some other things about how there used to be this idea that Christianity is um, like you have to like if you torture yourself, that makes you like closer to God. He said that's totally not the case. He actually he said that there's like he found like these old in the monastery. He found these like old whips that back in the day they like whip themselves, get closer to God. And he said that's not what it's about. And then he kind of like he talked about going beyond like legalism and law, going deeper into this like direct place with God.
I'm
So
curious of where, sorry, go ahead, Brian.
no, go ahead.
I'm curious of where that knowledge was coming from.
His
The
knowledge.
whip, no, the whips and the torture. Like I feel
Well,
like I know directly where his knowledge was coming from, but
that's in you'll find that in because I remember when I was in India, I saw a guy doing that, and I assume he was like Hindu or something. So you'll find that in like all the religions have that strand. It's an interesting thing because there is this like ascetic tradition, in all the religions, and asceticism is like it's making more sense to me now than it used to. So asceticism is kind of like you you put aside reaching for worldly pleasures in order to be able to go within more deeply than yourself, right? So I think that makes sense at least for like a period of time. I mean, that's kind of what I did actually for 5 days, right? Um, but that's kind of being in like a space of like putting something aside, but that doesn't mean you have to like hurt yourself or harm yourself. That's another
right.
Right.
another level beyond that. Yeah, so those were like pretty much the only words I heard in 5 days are from him. Those are the things that he said.
Brian, he said, let's see if I got it. The glory of God is a human being fully alive, right?
Glory, I think that's right. I think that's correct. Yeah, and that's from Saint Irenaeus.
Okay. Do you feel, I'm just curious, do you feel like Father Carlos embodied that?
No, I don't. I don't. But that's interesting though. It's
Yeah.
more like it's not that he's. I don't say to say like, oh, he's a hypocrite. I say to say like I think it might mean something deeper than I thought it meant. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
your physical body could be not in the best of shape, but your soul could be fully alive.
Hmm.
You know, and so I think he probably looking at it from that place.
I mean, did he exude a sense of joy? Do you think?
It was interesting, like not the way I would typically, not the way I would define joy. No, yeah, he seemed like almost like hmm, I don't know what the word would be. Something powerful was coming from him, but it wasn't like something that would stand out. Like if you saw him like in a store or something, you wouldn't be like, oh my God, this guy's. You wouldn't even notice him. You wouldn't be like, oh, this guy's amazing. He was just like I said, he was in bad like physically he was in bad shape. He would kind of like hobble around and you know there was nothing like about him that like you would think, oh, I want to be like him. I
Hmm.
mean, but I
And
think
yet,
he yeah,
yeah, and yet
I think he
you,
had something that transcended the physical
yeah,
form. Yeah, Gio talks a lot about humility, and I think that's right. I think he did have humility.
okay,
Yeah,
that makes sense. Yeah.
yeah. Um, So a moment that I think was like to me, it summed up the whole experience for me was I was having these like, I was going to these like really powerful meditations. And some of them would go for long periods of time, maybe even like up to like 2 hours. And so there was this moment, and I ended up mostly I would meditate quite often in the church because the church was so quiet and so still in there. It was like so, it was a powerful place actually to sit and meditate. Um, so I would go in there a lot. So in this case, it's like middle of the afternoon, and I go in, and one of the guys that was there on retreat too was this really old man. He had like a walker, and something about him to me like seemed kind of a little bit off. I didn't quite know what it was. Um, but I come in and he's like kind of going out, but it seems like he like sees me and he like sits back down. That's what it looked like to me. So so I go and I sit down and I close my eyes and I go into this really, really deep, like I think it's one of the deepest, maybe the deepest like meditation I've ever been in. It was like really amazing. And I like felt like I was in this like really powerful connection with communion with God, right? And like not just like this retreat really it was like it made that relationship like alive and real and intimate in a way that's like beyond just um words, even though it was beyond words already, but it deepened it, right, in this process. So I remember like Father Carlos again, he said he said basically he's like, don't talk. These are quiet spaces. Um, but he said, if you do hear someone talking, he said, don't carry that anger inside yourself. Otherwise, you're not silent inside anymore.
Mm.
You know, so so anyway, I go into the station, I'm in this like really deep place, like, you know, and all of a sudden I hear, excuse me. Now this is like a silent, it says right the sign, it says silent, no talking. It's so I open my eyes and I'm like, yes, it's that guy. He goes, are you the priest from California? And I said, no, I'm not. He goes, oh, sorry for disturbing you. And then I saw like this like almost like a fork in the road, you know. One, it was like to get really mad at this guy because he broke the rules and he did something he shouldn't have done. But it almost felt like God was like testing me in that moment,
Mm.
you know? It's like, are you gonna like apply this to your real life or are you just gonna be like in meditation? Because it was so strange. It was such a strange thing. Like,
Mm.
why did he say this to me? Didn't make any sense. So so then I saw that and I'm like, no, I need to choose like this is like a test to like integrate this, you know? So then I said, do you need help getting out the door? Because he had this walker thing. I'm like, he can't get out the door. He's trying to leave, you know? He's like, no, I'm okay. I'll figure it out. And I'm like, no, you need to help him get out the door. So I came up, I opened the door for him, helped him out, and then helped him out the second door. And I felt like in that moment, I felt like that's what this whole like retreat was about. It was like that moment right there was everything, you know?
Mm.
It's like the ego ego wants to be in control and wants it to be how it's supposed to be, you know, but life's not going to happen the way you think it's supposed to be. It's going to be unpredictable and there's going to be things that are surprises and things that are out of the ordinary and things that don't go the way, you know, right? So I felt like um, it's not about things going the way you think they should go. It's about love. Ultimately, it's about love. It's about helping people, you know, and being of service to people and like coming into that unified essence of feeling God in everybody and being of support to everybody.
Mm.
Man.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. that's like that moment, like some was like summarized everything that I was experiencing.
Well, it's like you could have been, you had a choice between being religious and sticking to the rule, not answering him, keeping silent, or connecting with him on a personal level out of
Yeah.
love, and you
Yeah.
chose the second one.
Yeah. Or I could have like cursed him out or
Yeah.
whatever. There was a lot of options at that moment.
You could have pushed him down.
A lot of different options.
You know, to me, choosing to be loving says that there's no lack in you. You know, it says that I'm already filled and I have God's with me, and it's beautiful. It's like, whereas sometimes in our practice, if we're like, oh, I need to meditate in order to have God, you know, we're um, maybe not thinking accurately, you know, but to me, so much of this is realizing He's with us and, you know, we are full to love or share His love always. Um,
Yeah.
Already. It's already
already.
here. There's nothing even to look for, nothing to read about, nothing to learn. We just need to forget to remember. That's all. It's already
I'm,
here.
I'm with that.
That's been coming through really strong for me, like why I'm here. Like that's what I'm here to teach is it's not something you have to look for. It's not something you have to search for.
Yeah, I sometimes they talk about the seeking itself is a false idea that there's a place to go, you know, somewhere outside of yourself where Jesus taught the kingdom of heaven is within, and you know that was established before we were here. And yeah, so you're right. Remember to forget or forget to remember. Yeah, that's that's beautiful. It's a beautiful teaching, though it seems to require sometimes taking stillness to really
Mm-hmm.
recognize or re-choose it.
Mm-hmm.
I keep thinking about that verse, be still and know that I am God, just thinking about you out there, Brian, because that's just such a, I don't know, I feel like one of the best Bible verses to describe a practice to get deeper in what you're talking about, Jacob. If there is a practice, it's like being still before his presence and getting to know that or receiving of him.
Mhm.
In this
Yeah.
society, there's so much noise and
Yeah.
chaos and distraction. And really, like if you do what Brian just did, that's all you have to do. Like you just have to remove yourself from the chaos and the distraction, and then what's left? The truth is there.
That's a good point.
It's there's too much to see it, to feel it, to know it within. Too many stories and ideas and
So it's like there was like five qualities that I was noticing and I was like in the meditative states. So so God is within me, God's within all within is within, and this is just like my best attempt to put it in language, right? It's not really something that can be put in language, but God is within me and within all of us. So it's almost like when you become conscious enough, you're choosing to rest in God or be lost in the separation division of the ego. You know, and that's where all like, you know, the difficulties and problems and suffering and all the things arise. So these qualities I found in God is like, which is within me, which is within all of us, is God is infinitely, God is infinite love, infinite peace, infinite freedom, infinite forgiveness, and infinite creativity. And so like you like rest in that essence and like that's heaven. You're in heaven. You know, you're in the kingdom of God. And so I think that like the challenge, if you want to call it a challenge, is like to like be resting in the kingdom of God and then, you know, be in the world but not of it, right? So be resting in the kingdom of God, but then still functioning in the linear world of time and space. That's the that's the place.
that's the dance.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like your relationship with the world becomes so different when you're in that place. It's definitely been more difficult, like it was easier there because it's so silent still there now externally. So it's easier to kind of like drop into that place. I do think there's something about the energy of the space and the monk, all that was helpful, you know. Um, but um, but your relationship with everything becomes different because if you're already in the fullness in the here and now, if God is here and now, and you're in the fullness of God here and now, um, you're not you're just the way you're operating with things that are happening is it's almost like you're just like actually Ram Dass has this thing about I am loving awareness, right? So it's like you're like just observing things with loving awareness because you're not like grasp because you're already in the fullness already. And it's the essence of who we are. So I was just like having the intention to be present with that truth and doing all kinds of different interesting meditations. I've been mentioning some of them throughout the week. I can share some of them now that are they're just different things that come to me like meditation things to practice and play with. Um, but one is well, I'll give you one is I haven't mentioned this one yet. So I have this watch, and so I look at the watch, and the watch is going like, you know, what time is it? Like 12 seconds, 13 seconds, 14 seconds, 15 seconds. So I watch the watch and it's like time is like moving, but there's this space, like there's the white that is the same. Even though the clock, even though the ticker is, going around, the space is the same. So I'm watching the space that's not changing as I'm watching. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it's like it's like your relationship with time becomes different. It's like you're really starting to feel the eternal.
Mm.
And yeah, it's just a real sense of like letting go, letting go, letting go, letting go. I'll share took a few images, pictures of a few images that I like there. So when you first come in on the wall, um, I guess Saint Benedict is the founder of the Trappist monks, I believe. And so when you first come in, it says, "Let all guests that come be received like Christ." That was really beautiful.
It's so loving. It's like I love that about Christianity is just like I mean it is so loving to point at Christ. Like if you hear that, it's extremely loving if you know him, you know? And that's one
Yeah.
thing even people who don't love religion, I hope that they can be honest and feel the lovingness in a statement like that, or
Mhm.
things like that. It's important to me at least.
I think so here's something I've been thinking about that. People, there was someone I was talking to this week, and I was like mentioning a few things about this, and he was telling me about like how much anger he feels coming up towards like Christianity and like all this rage and this vengeance that he feels inside himself, and how like so many people have been hurt and all the atrocities and so forth. So I think what part of it I think is like because there's something inside of us that knows the way it's I don't know if I don't want to say supposed to be, but knows like the truth of what that transmission of Christ is. And so when someone's doing something the opposite of that in the name of Christ, it's like extra painful.
Mhm.
That's kind of how I feel it.
Mm.
So like, like yeah, I think that's part of why there's like a lot of this like thing is like you have a high expectation of what you're think you're going to receive. and then you don't get it because people are fallible, and there's a lot of disappointment that's there.
I think there's also an important process of learning, or at least I'm being taught that the distortions like associated with that really have nothing to do with God in his essence, right? Or
Mhm.
Christ in its essence. Like those like beings are like wholly benevolent, like wholly loving, giving, extending, you know? And like that's a piece of discernment that is really important in this world to be able to just see good standing alone, you know, not distorted by name or form or whatnot. Like destruction or evil or harm, you know, is always just the kind of anti-God idea, wherever form it takes, you know, and it pops up in every different religion and different things, you know, but those like learning that that has nothing to do with the truth that Jesus was offering and nothing to do with what God is actually being is like a big part of, I think, healing that rift. And that takes some retraining, you know, going back to those like essential Christian themes that I think Father Carlos put out is it's like the prodigal son is wholly embraced. You know, there's not a punishing, revengeful dynamic. All those are like projections of our lower self. And like that fear is horrendous. And the devil says, yeah, God did this to you. And he made death and he made all this horrible stuff happen. And you go deeper into it and you realize none of that's true. It's just another layer of the lie that, you know, Christ came to save, redeem, restore reality from. And so it's profound to learn those things. It takes a lot of time, but I think we're doing that in this group, and I see a lot of people trying to clarify those things um, as we go forward. So
Yep.
Yeah, I've often wondered if maybe all the things about sinner and guilt and all that that people have around Christianity, if that didn't get started because some of the people in the religion were becoming controlling and they were deciding they want people to come to the service, they want them to hear this, they want them to act a certain way. So they created the guilt around it when it wasn't really there to the beginning, and maybe even some, some in the Catholicism, people were, kind of getting corrupt and wanting money given to the church, and it's sort of got twisted.
Yeah, I think there's a thing where like people try to draw people into fear, and to me, that's not the essence of what it's really it's love. You know, love
mhm.
is the truth of the core of what it's about, and that's that's what you emanate, and then
Mhm.
you draw back. As Jesus said, whoever has the eyes to see and ears to hear, that's who you draw in.
There's something funny somebody said in an Al-Anon meeting once. They said that basically there's two kinds of people. There's the alcoholic addict that tends to be the wild pony, and then there's the Al-Anon people that want to control them, and that's the cowboy. And so there's always these two types of people, these wild ones, and then the ones that want to catch them and make them do things.
I think it's just Jesus was teaching on such a level that is still so rare, you know, that I mean, I know that yeah, I mean, fear constitutes the majority of human experiences, you know, and that impulse towards controlling and distorting is, I think, our kind of human karma. And so it's just almost bound to happen that people make God in their own image. Like fear comes out of us naturally until a higher power restores, you know, sanity, until there's a new choice made. So
Perfect
it's
love
just,
casts out all fear.
let's go, Jesus.
So, so when I there was this I guess it would be a painting, I guess. Yeah, a painting. It was a painting of Jesus, and it was it was in the one of those silent the second silent room for meals. So it was the extra silent one with the brick and the stone and everything. So I would sit a couple of times, 2 or 3 times. I would sit when the space was available, and I would just stare at this painting like the whole time, like be in this meditation state. And on the painting, it says, "I am the living bread. Come to me, you who labor and are burdened, and I will refresh you." So I would just like go over that. There's a thing, there's a kind of meditation. I can't remember what it's called. You might know what it's called, Mark, where you just go over a line like over and over, and you just meditate on it, like each word, what is it? What does it mean? So I was doing that with this, like, I am the living bread. What does it mean? I am the living bread. So I just like go over that part, and then come to me, all who labor and are burdened. What does it mean to be labored and burdened? And then what does it mean? I will refresh you. So anyway, that was powerful for me doing that.
Hmm.
But one of the things that I see is it's like this whole thing, like I'm thinking of the I will refresh you part, right? So it's like for me, when I go really deep into it, it's like I break out of time. That's the eternal life. Like that's when you receive the eternal life. You're not bound by time anymore. So you're not bound by a body, you're not bound by life and death, you're not bound by all these different dualities. You've kind of like cracked the code of time and space, and you're in the realm of eternal life. And yeah, so that's kind of like coming into that place through just like going deeper into that phrase was because refresh is like when you're completely refreshed. So if you're labored and burdened, you're weighed down by things that have happened in the past. That's why you're burdened and labored, right? So when you're refreshed, that's broken. The weight of the past is broken. So it's like you have no time. You 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 exist outside of time, but yet somehow you're in time as well. So you're here completely fresh. You're the glory of God is you being made fully alive. You've been made fully alive, in the here and now. You've been given eternal life. So the essence of who you are, that's the deeper level of like when we talk about the non-duality, it's like there's this essence of ourselves that's deeper than the dualities of things that not that they don't exist, but there's a place deeper than that we're able to touch and access, which would be, we could call it like the kingdom of God or those lines.
Can I ask a personal question?
Sure.
How did Annie feel about you going away for 5 days to that place?
Well, I think she's on here. Annie, are you available to talk? Or are you with Joa? Might not be available to talk.
Hey guys. Yeah,
And
I'm not sure if I'm it might get pretty loud. He's feeling kind of vocal right now. But I kind of heard the question, but I didn't really hear the question. Can you repeat it?
Yeah, I said, how did you feel about Brian going away for 5 days to do something like that while you were taking care of the baby?
Right. I think because I had so much time to prepare for it, like months, that helped. There were moments where, I just to be honest, I felt some stress arise. But at the same time, like, I think the predominant feeling was just, I was grateful that, because this is something he's been talking about doing ever since I met him. So I felt grateful that the time was finally here, and it was like the right, like it felt like the right place to do this. Because when we first met, for a while, he wanted to do a darkness retreat.
Still do.
And yeah, and that would be right too. But I don't know, something vibrationally about this monastery just felt like, wow, that's really awesome. So, I was happy. I was happy that it worked out. And I think the stress was that I tried so hard to get someone to come and stay with me just so that I'd have some company and some help with Joa. And like everything kept falling through, like literally. And then I finally just surrendered. I'm like, okay, I just felt like the message was like, just for me to also, I mean, obviously I'm not alone because I have Joa, but it's, I've never actually had that opportunity either where it's just, when he's sleeping, like I actually have some alone time. So I got like so much done. Stuff done that I've been wanting to do for a very long time. So anyways, that's a long-winded answer to your question. It was mixed, but overall like happy that it worked out and it went really fast. I was like, oh my God, like Monday to Friday. I was like, it's Friday already. Like, what the heck? I felt like I was just starting to get into the swing of it.
Yeah.
But honestly, like, yeah, that amount of time with a 14-month-old, like that's pretty much plenty. That's like all I can handle. Just me and Joa, I'm like any more, because he, it's not he needs a change up in energetics as well. It's not just me. He needs different experiences with, he needs, just, it's great when Brian is around, basically is what I'm trying to say. Or, or if my mom could have been here,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to admit it was weird because I out of the blue, seeing your experience of you going away or whatever, it brought a memory of mine up of when I was a young mom. And my ex started this thing of just wanting to go away. Like, I mean, he wasn't my ex then, my husband, like every few months. And he went to Club Med once for a week. And one of my daughters got sick and had a fever of like 105. And I tried to call there and they said, I'm sorry, you can't contact anybody here. I thought I'd forgotten it. I thought I'd forgiven everything that had happened to me in the past. And then there was another time where I had just had my third child and it was a baby, uh, little baby. And my mom took in a homeless lady who was acting really bizarre. And then that was just days before my husband was going to be leaving to go back to New York to see friends or something. And I begged him to stay, because this lady was acting so bizarre but my mom wouldn't admit to my husband that she was weird. She didn't want to admit that she'd made a mistake, only to me. She's afraid she is on drugs and had a gun. And I didn't sleep for 4 days before my husband left. And then he left and I had a nervous breakdown while he was gone. I begged him to stay. I said, please, So anyway, not to make this about me, but
sounds like I brought up a good trauma for you to clear.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. It just brought it up and I was like seething and I thought, okay, this is not about Brian. I mean, maybe he and Annie made an arrangement. Maybe she's going to go see her family sometime and it's all fair and everything's nice. But it made me like, I've really got to journal about this, and make sure I've really forgiven this.
Yeah, I feel like this retreat made me a better husband, better man overall. So I really seen some things.
Yes, I will second that. I'm seeing the major benefits. So it makes me even more like just so grateful that it happened. And, honestly, if there was a call to go back, like I would support that as long as it's a good time for our family.
Yeah, I think that's the is like if someone's doing an intention to like be a better man, that's different if they're going on some drunken binge or something like that.
Yeah.
I think what the intention is important.
Yeah, my ex, he'd come back and he'd say, now if this lady calls and she's really bizarre, and she says all these weird things about me. Don't believe it. You know, I was like, oh, okay.
Mm. Not nice.
No. I'm sure that's not Brian.
Anybody else have any questions? Christy Eubanks, Geo, Haley, Arnie. How about Will, Robin, Jacob, Mark, Annie? Those have any questions?
I
Well,
prayed for you, Brian, the whole
Thank
time.
you, Mark.
I did.
Thank you, Mark.
it was good to see you there, Brian. And just want to share a little bit of gratitude. I'm going away this weekend to go to Brian's house, and Haley's going to be here with 2 kids, 2 dogs, and a cat in the house. And
Are you going to become a better man?
yep.
Okay, well that's
and
wow.
and it happens often, just the freedom for me to be able to do that. So a lot of gratitude to Haley for supporting me in becoming a better man and a better version of myself, and closer unity with God. And glad to be here with you guys. This was great, Brian. I'm grateful for your opportunity, and glad to be able to share, this kind of conversation with all you guys.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll just say too, I included the car ride in my silent retreat time. So I chose not to do any phone calls or, God forbid, texting while driving or whatever. Just the only thing was either silence or just spiritual, resonant music on the way up and the way back. So that was a powerful part of it as well. All
I
the
just
Appalachian Mountains in and out.
I was gonna say, Brian, I appreciate having just role models, people doing that, like just taking that silent time and bringing the benefit. Because I do believe that, yeah, the good things we choose to do affects all of us, and it's powerful just to realize that more deeply. And thank you for being a role model of that silent well. I think that is kind of the core of going deeper in this practice is the willingness to spend that time. So,
Yeah, and if you really get that we are all one, right?
hmm
Then if you're quiet and you're by yourself and you're having a transformation of consciousness, you know, um, then even if you're not talking, that is affecting the whole world, right? Because you're part of the whole world.
Thanks be to God.
There was this writer, Krishnamurti, used to say, "You are the world, and the world is you." Right? So when you make the change in yourself, you are part of the world. So that's affecting the whole world because you're part of the world. And it's easy to forget that and be looking at everybody else, wanting everybody else to change, instead of making that inner transformation and working on that inner transformation.
Amen.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everybody. Lots of love and appreciation. We have some really, really good guests coming up this rest of this month. I think some interesting people from some different perspectives and ways of seeing and being. So look forward to sharing that with y'all.
Thanks for sharing all the great ideas.
Yeah. Oh, and I definitely recommend some silent retreat space
Yeah.
or digital detox. We'll have a digital detox retreat ourselves, September 5th to the 7th at Christ Mountain Retreat Center, Black Mountain. So
How do you spell the name of that place?
where I was?
Uh-huh.
I'll put it in the text thread.
Okay.
Yeah, check this one first.